What's your current title?
I'm the
Catherine's lackey? No.
I'm the president of Tatsuda Supermarket Inc.
Okay. So Catherine hasn't taken that from you yet.
She is vice president of Tatsuda's Inc. She's also store manager.
Oh wow.
I am grocery stocker for aisle 6.
Wait, that's how you
Oriental.
Started, right?
Not aisle 6, but in the old store, yes. I started facing shelves when I was 6 years old.
Did you really?
Yeah, six years
Did they
old.
drag you in? I mean, did you ask to do it?
My grandfather, well, he wanted me to trim lettuce when I was about 4. But back then they didn't have refrigerated containers. The lettuce came in slimy, so here's my grandfather. He gets a stool and stands me over a big garbage can. And he says, okay, trim the lettuce. Here, show. He's starting to show me, and I'm starting to cry because I don't want to touch this stuff. So that was supposed to be my first job, but I didn't do it. I refused. You know, so then he gave up for a while.
And what year was this? I want to know what year this was, if that's not being too offensive.
1954 maybe.
And were you in this location?
No, we were down the hill on Stedman Street, 339 Stedman, which is across the street from the Salvation Army.
Oh, okay.
Right next to Diaz Cafe. Mm-hmm. So that's where the store was then.
For how long was it there?
Well, that was our second store, actually. I think that store was there 1948 to 1972.
Oh, wow. Holy smokes.
71, 72. Yeah, and prior to that, they had a store from 1916 to 1947 up the hill on Stedman Street, where there's an empty lot. Remember there were 3 totem poles in front of a house? Well, right next to those totem poles is an empty lot, and that's where our first store was.
Really?
Yes.
What happened to it?
They had a fire, and it burned down in 1947.
Really?
In December, and before I was born.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
So how did the fire start?
Well, that was an interesting story. My dad claims they blamed him because he was underneath the building with a blowtorch thawing out pipes, you know, January in Ketchikan. Mm-hmm. And then the fire started, so they blamed him. But he doesn't think it was him. He doesn't know.
He doesn't know?
Yeah. I was talking to Boots Adams, you know, the trading post. They used to own the trading post.
Yeah.
She and her husband were trollers at that time, and they shopped at our store, and she was in the store shopping. And she said, all of a sudden my grandfather came and started kicking her out of the store, and she thought he was mad at her. So she bought her groceries and went outside, and her car was parked in front of the store. She walked around the car, and just then, a huge explosion, a big flash came out of the store and singed the other side of the car. And she just told me this a few months ago.
Oh my goodness.
She was actually in the store when it caught on fire. So.
And your grandfather was okay though, right?
Yeah, there were no injuries that I'm aware of.
You know what I want to know? I mean, this is such an institution, an icon in Ketchikan. What prompted your family to get into the grocery business?
This is just conjecture now. My grandfather moved into Ketchikan in the early 1900s, and he first came here as a cannery worker. And after a while, working for the cannery, you know, every year everyone loaded back up with the canned salmon and left. But he stayed 1 year and did odd jobs. He was a hand troller.
Back then, hand trolling was you had a rowboat and you rowed the boat. That was hand trolling.
No.
And they didn't have fishing rods or downriggers or hand girdies. They had like a branch with a twine tied to it with the hook. So, and he was out at Bond Bay. There's a nice beach out at Bond Bay, out by Camino. And so they would camp out on the beach, and they'd go out and row their boats and catch fish. And then once a day, a tender would come and buy the fish. And it was like 50 cents a fish. No matter how big it was 50 cents a fish. And they wouldn't buy White King, because White King,
Really?
no one would believe that it was salmon, because it was white. Salmon has to
Really?
be this color.
Interesting.
Oh, even into the 60s, white salmon, you did not get a decent price for white salmon. You were better off taking it home and eating it. So,
Fascinating.
Yeah, now it's considered
Now it's
a
so coveted.
delicacy. Yeah, yeah.
At some point, he sent for a wife from Japan, and so the families on Shikoku Island in Japan got together and they picked someone out, and they were married in Japan because the United States had laws that said single Asian women could not immigrate to the United States if they were single.
Really?
Yeah, so they were
That's-
married. They actually had a marriage certificate in Japan. They did a proxy wedding. She came with a picture of my grandfather, and he had a picture of her, and they met on the dock.
Wait a second. Proxy wedding.
Proxy, well, that's when you have a ceremony apparently, but you have a stand-in
Stand-ins.
groom.
Really?
Yeah.
No way.
Anyway, so they had a marriage certificate. That was the main thing.
Okay.
They were officially married. So they met at the dock in Seattle with pictures of each other and came to Ketchikan. So I think once they got here, well, here's the wife, and she's sitting around all day. Might as well start a store. She can sit and sell bread and milk. And
Interesting.
that's pretty much how it started, just selling,
What was the population of Ketchikan back then, I wonder?
wasn't very much. I don't know. 1916?
That would be really, I'm going to find that out.
Yeah. But you know, back in those days, Ketchikan was one of the larger cities in Alaska.
Probably because it was so far south.
It was much larger than Juneau.
Now that's fascinating.
Yeah, yeah. And if you look at the history, you know, Sitka was a big city in the 1800s. It was bigger than San Francisco at one point because of the Russians. And,
No way.
yeah, it was really a going concern. But Ketchikan, you know, grew mainly because we are a good location. We have a sheltered harbor, and we have fisheries and timber.
So your grandparents started the store, which then subsequently blew up.
Blew up, and so they opened another store down by Diaz Cafe. And after that, so
And so they opened that store, and that's where you started stocking the
yeah,
shelves.
1954 maybe, 6 years old. They had me facing shelves. My grandfather was still alive and working in the store, and he'd say, okay, do this, and he'd show me how to face the shelves, and I did the bottom shelf because he was getting old. He couldn't get down that low.
Now, what does facing the shelf mean?
That means bringing things forward on the shelf so it looks full and people can see what's on the shelf.
Okay.
That's facing. I call that facing. And so I would do the bottom shelf, and then he'd get my grandmother, and they'd come over and ooh and ah and say, oh, you did a good job. And then he'd give me a dime, and he'd give me a small bottle of Coke. You know those small bottles?
Oh,
of
the
Coke?
itty bitties?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He'd give me one of those. I got hooked on the Coke. Lifetime problem. And so that's where I started at 5.
But did you really think, I mean, you started as a little kid, but when you became a teenager, was your aspiration to be in the grocery business? Because didn't you have a record store?
Well, that was much later, but yeah, I was forced into the business, yes. I remember, you know, I'd go down and work, but it was like half play and half work. You know, my cousin and I used to race heck. We almost burned down the store a couple times playing
What?
matches, you know.
You were bad.
Well, we played, you know, we did. And one time in the back room, we were digging around back there, and we found this old cash register. It had all this Canadian money in it, so we filled our pocket, you know, coins and stuff, because the Canadian coins would come to Ketchikan,
Right.
and apparently they were harder to spend, so they were like accumulating all these coins. So we came out of the back room with our pockets full of these Canadian coins falling out of our pockets. We got caught.
You got caught?
Yeah,
Oh no, what was the penalty?
Well, they took it away from us. I guess that was the penalty. But yeah, so I grew up in the store, back room, front, you know, helping. And I remember 7th grade, I thought, well, I think I'll learn to play the guitar and I'll be a rock star. So I got a guitar and I was practicing. I didn't go to work after school that day. And So my dad comes home and said, well, where were you today? And I said, well, I'm playing the guitar. He says, well, you better come to work tomorrow or you're not going to get lunch money.
Ooh.
So I went to work, and that's how I got forced into the business.
You got forced into the business.
Yeah.
How is the store, you know, this is, and this is a very, very famous aisle right here because this is where the bear came in.
The bear was right, yeah, he jumped up right here and was running around.
And ran right down there, and that has gone viral on YouTube many times over. And you guys have it on your website too.
Yes.
How has the store changed? I mean, because to me, one of the things that's very appealing about Tatsuda's is that a lot hasn't changed. You know, the people are friendly. Joe's, the butcher's, been here for 25 years. You know, it's the same family. But as with any business, you have to change a few things. So what are some of the things that you guys have changed?
From the old days, the transportation systems changed. I remember my grandfather trying to make me trim lettuce when I was 5 or 6, and I didn't want to because it was all slimy.
Ooh.
Because back then, the produce would come up on a steamship and didn't really have refrigeration, and so it wasn't in good condition when it got here. And all the meat would come in frozen. They had freezers on the steamships, so all the meat would be frozen meat because the fresh meat wouldn't make it. So
Right.
So those are some real basic changes. So now we have much better quality produce, and the meat comes in fresh. And plus they've invented cryovac, the vacuum packing and sanitizing, so meat will last a lot longer.
Right. But you guys also offer, I think, a couple of different, well, you were just telling me that you guys are kind of the go-to for the restaurants in town, plus all of the deliveries. And I am assuming that you also have people that have fly-in orders, or they're going to fly their groceries to them.
Yeah, we're a very unusual store in that we do a lot of business out the back door. We sell commercially to restaurants, to logging camps, to resorts. We actually deliver to probably most businesses in town, one thing or another. We do home deliveries.
I know, the best grocery shopping I ever had done for me was you guys.
Yeah, we'll take your order. You can fax it, email, call us. And there's a lot of senior citizens that and we do free delivery to senior citizens because a lot of them have a hard time getting out. So we do that. It's just kind of a traditional thing with us. Some of the other things that we do, you know, most stores, like if you go to a big Safeway or a chain store, they have no clue about home deliveries.
Oh, yeah, like a
that
Publix
kind of
down south or something like that.
Yeah, they don't do that. It takes too much labor. It's labor intensive. They're not set up to do it. And it's something we can do on a personal level. Like, you know, senior citizen will call up and say they want cheese. Well, when we know what kind they want and what size.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I remember that was my first order, and the guy that I spoke with, he was wonderful because I was pretty basic. You know, I said just best price, best quality, best price. And so get me the best thing for the least amount of money. And he went through and it was beautiful. And I came home and it was all waiting on the counter. He didn't get eaten alive by my dog.
Yeah, and we'll even put it in your refrigerator for you. I mean, a lot of senior citizens, we actually do that for. We put it away for them. And then take the empty boxes away so they don't have to deal with that, too.
So when you were a young man first starting to run the store, obviously you grew up in the store. What was the scariest thing to you about, or was there even anything scary about, oh my goodness, I'm going to be running this, my family's operation?
Well, I didn't have plans to actually come back and run the store. You know, I grew up through high school. When I was 16, when I turned 16, I was the driver and I did all the deliveries.
Oh,
and
really?
I also picked up freight. So at 16 years old, I was pretty much, you know, a journeyman grocer and doing all the work. And when I went to college, I wasn't sure I was going to come back and be in the grocery business.
Where did you go to college?
I went to Antioch College in Yellow Springs, Ohio.
I know it well.
Small college. It's a real hippie school. I wasn't prepared for it when I went. I had a crew cut in...
But Antioch is the school where they do not charge tuition. right?
No, they do charge tuition.
Okay, so I
Yes.
heard years ago they used to
I'm
not.
not aware of that.
Or maybe that's
but
changed.
They don't have grades. They didn't have grades when I was
Yes,
there.
they don't have grades.
That's nice, you know.
Bonus.
Yeah,
Fun in college.
yeah. But I majored in, actually I was the only accounting major my year. I mean, it was a liberal arts school. You know, we're talking about, you know, throwing pots and literature were the two biggest majors there.
Wow.
Maybe education. When I got there, I remember arriving at Vandalia Airport and looking for the college students that were supposed to pick me up, give me a ride. And I'm walking down the concourse there, and there's all these what appeared to be really bums, you know, panhandlers. They were sitting on the floor. I walked by them because I didn't think they would be the college students. Turns out they were, and they were there to give me a ride to school. So yeah, there was so much smoke in the hallway of my dormitory you couldn't see down the hallway.
That is funny. Now, is that how you decided to venture into the record business eventually, or is it just always been music's always been a huge love of yours?
Yeah, well, I graduated in 1971. I actually spent a year in Japan too as a foreign exchange student.
Oh, that's cool.
That was good because I wanted to like explore my roots, you know, because our family was from Japan, you know, 3 generations ago. So I went there just to see, you know, what they were like, and found out rather quickly that I wasn't really Japanese, and I never could be because I grew up here and basically am American.
Right.
So after college, got back, was working in the store, and there was one place in town that sold records, but they didn't have like a real current selection.
Mm-hmm.
And so we thought, oh, we could sell records, you know. And so we started a little record store in the corner of my dad's warehouse, the store warehouse.
And is that where that picture of you with the record behind your head?
No, that was in college.
Oh no.
That was the wild days of college.
That's awesome.
That was funny, yes.
Hi there! Are you new here? Thank you for shopping at Tatsuda.
So I got to know though. I mean, this has gone through the generations of your family. Obviously, Catherine has children.
Yes.
How did you convince her to get involved? Or was that a decision that she made?
No, I'm really good arm twisting. I'm not sure she was interested because I think she had this conception that, you know, it's really hard work and you really have to, at least my example for me was that I'm basically a grunt. You know, you come to work and
Well, yeah, because I come here and you're stocking shelves.
and it's physical and you're working all the time and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, so I think she was maybe looking for some other occupation, but at some point, you know, I was looking around going, okay, now what do we do at the store if no one's interested?
Right.
So I thought, well, the thing that makes the most sense is to have family take it over. So
Right.
there was some arm twisting involved, but you know, once she decided, she made a commitment, and I think she's doing very well.
Oh, I think so too.
She's taking over.
And you guys have some big plans moving forward.
Yeah. Well, you know, our 100-year anniversary for being in the grocery business in Ketchikan is 2016. And we want to do a major remodel by then, which means that we're going to, you know, all new equipment, probably a new look on the building outside, possibly move a few things around, and add some services.
When you've already made a lot of changes, just even in a small way, I notice it when I come in the store. There's different kind of merchandising happening, and you mentioned that Catherine's putting in a salad bar.
Yeah, she's adding a salad bar and soup. So, and I think the salad bar, you know, be like kind of like a little buffet kind of thing, where you have a selection of things you can choose from. And you know, the soup, that's one of the weaknesses we've had is when you come in here, there's a limited selection of ready-to-eat food.
Right.
So this will help solve that problem.
Because it's really kind of centrally located. A lot of people can just come over here and grab something and go.
Yeah, yeah, and you know, I have to credit Catherine for most of the changes in the way the store looks, and like the salad bar thing is her project, and she's trying to update us. You know, I mean, my generation was the generation where you bought food ingredients, you bought sugar, you bought flour, or you bought cake mixes. You know, you don't see as much of that anymore. People want it ready to eat.
True.
So we're working in that angle, and she's trying to upgrade our selection more to her generation.
Interesting.
Yeah.
She's done a great job on the PR too. Excellent
Yeah.
job.
Yeah, she is. She has, and it's good.
I want to ask you something. What was the one thing that your parents told you as a piece of advice when you were ready to kind of take the big step and take over the store? Did they give you any advice? And if they didn't, or maybe even if they did, my next question to dovetail off that one would be, what would be the one piece of advice that you would give Catherine? Or maybe that you have given Catherine? Na 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 na.
Well, you know, I don't think it's one piece. I think it's a whole lifetime of example. Both my parents were extremely honest people. When they said something, it was true. They said what they believed. When they made promises, they followed through with them. You know, it was that kind of example. So it wasn't any one piece of advice. It was just, you know, be truthful, be honest, and deal with people in that way. And that's probably the most important thing. The other thing I learned from example is it's just to work hard every day, and that's good. You know, growing up in Ketchikan with myself and most of my friends, it was the harder you work, the better. It was something to be proud of.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know, I'm not sure if that's true today for a lot of people. You know, everyone wants to use their thumbs on their little electronic device rather than actually being a grunt and producing hard physical labor. But I think that may be what sets us apart in the grocery business, because it is such a physical occupation.
Are you ever going to be able to leave this place?
I don't plan on it. I don't plan on retiring. You know, I don't think I have to. Of course, Catherine might have other ideas.
She'll push you out the door.
Well, I tell everyone that they're going to trick me. They're going to take me to dinner at the Pioneer Home and make me stay there. That's my retirement plan, basically.
Yeah, but you've been having fun. I mean, you have to admit it. You and your wife have taken some pretty darn cool trips.
Yeah, and that's one of the advantages of having your own business, is that you set your own schedules.
Right.
So you're not bound by, you know, 8 to 5 work schedules. So, and that's nice. But yeah, the last couple of years, they've really taken a big load off of me. I mean, there was a point where I was working too hard.
Really?
Yeah, where I was actually physically dragging myself home at night.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And, you know, financially, we're in much better condition, too. We've been here long enough where, you know, we don't have much debt, so that helps.
Right, right. And, you know, there's folks that would argue that Ketchikan is maybe not such a thriving place now. I disagree, but I'm an outsider coming in, you know, recently, only 4 years ago. But take me back to some of the real boom times. What were those like in the store?
In the boom times, you know, boom times in my memory, you know, Ketchikan, from the time that the pulp mill opened, somewhere around 1953, 1954, you know, when the tunnel was built and all these buildings, Ketchikan was booming. And I actually believe it boomed all the way through the 70s. So there was a period of time there for, you know, 25 years where it was nothing but up. And business was good. The logging was going full bore, and the fishing, and then the money was being sent down from people working on the pipeline. And so getting into business at those times was not hard. you just had to open a store basically, and you had all the business you could handle. It got harder later. You know, pulp mill closes, Walmart shows up, things get a little tighter. So, but yeah, the early years of being in business in Ketchikan was pretty darn easy, and a lot of, and you saw that all over Alaska, where businessmen would do really well with a store, and they would think that they were absolutely brilliant businessmen, and then they'd open a whole bunch of stores, and the next thing you know, they were bankrupt because they weren't that brilliant. It's just that times were good.
Right, right.
Yeah, and lately, last 10, 12 years, times haven't been good in Ketchikan in terms of economy. We actually have a shrinking population here. So then, you know, I guess my plan was always, well, you roll up your sleeves and you work harder, which is what I did for 10 years.
And don't work too hard.
And we survived, you know, and that was the whole point of it.
So what's your favorite part of the store?
I think maybe the favorite part of the store is not physical, it's the mental. I'm still ordering the ad items in the grocery department. So, you know, all these big piles of groceries usually stacked all over, those are what I order.
Okay.
So, you know, because I'm buying them all at lower prices because they're in the ad, and we buy enough until we get to the last to the next ad, so we keep the price down the whole time. And you know, we know that that works. That works well, and it keeps our prices down, and it keeps customers a lot of times from driving by our store, because you know we're really not a high-priced store. We're actually very competitive here.
Where do you want to see this place in 25 years? What would be your dream?
Well, I'd like it to be more fine-tuned to the customers that we have. Maybe more modern, maybe better handle on quality and variety. Although we're a tiny store and we can't have everything, we can hone in better on what people might want to buy, and basically hand pick things for people that that's more accurate. So we don't need the space, we just need to spend some time figuring out.
There's nowhere else in town that you can find the variety and the quality of Asian items. You guys have it going on. And I also really like all of the different specialty flowers and stuff that you have. But I'm a big foodie. Like before, you were saying that a lot of people, and I was going to ask you this next, if you're seeing this trend at all, because, you know, fads come and go. Well, it seems like, you know, with the advent of the Food Network and all of these different food types of shows, people are really all of a sudden into cooking. And they're not just into cooking regular stuff, they're into cooking like by genre, if you will. Like there's comfort food, there's high-end gourmet, you know, there's the people that love bacon, if you will. So they're coming in and they're looking, I mean, I'm like you, I buy the sugar, the flour. There's nothing that comes out of a box in my house. Very seldom.
Yeah. And I guess that's the direction we want to go in. We want to be selling less of the junk food like potato chips and cake mixes and, you know, those kinds of things, and like I say, find more where people's interest in food is. And like we've added relatively recently all those European cheeses.
Oh.
And we just decided that we need to push produce, fruits and vegetables more, because it's a health issue. There was a recent health needs study done for Ketchikan. I don't know if you've seen that, but it just came out. And one of the problems is over 50% of the population in this area is either overweight or obese. And one of the main reasons for that is they don't eat enough fruits and vegetables.
See, I can't keep them in my house. I must be blessed.
And bells went off in my head. Oh, people need to eat more fruits and vegetables. Gee, maybe we should try selling more.
Yeah, true.
And the more we sell, the better the health of the community is going to be. So, starting next week, we're starting to order. We're getting opportunity buys now on produce. We're
nice.
Talking to our supplier and saying, okay, what do you got that's really good quality, that'll be a really reasonable price that we can push to get people to buy more fruits and produce. So next week we're gonna We're going to have, like, in addition to our regular ad, we'll have more items. And in fact, next week I think we have some organic items coming in.
Okay, that is my million-dollar question. I have wondered this since I've moved here. Never in my life, and I've lived all over the world, never in my life have I lived in a place where, and this is across the board, okay, not just Tatsuda's, but, and I'll just use an example where, this is a great example right here. All right, so this apple, these apples, which would say back in Tallahassee or Columbus, Ohio, or wherever, would maybe, I'm just gonna make up a price, be like 69 cents a pound, or on sale, 59 cents a pound. And then this mango would be like $5. I've never lived in a place, and explain this to me, why the really gourmet upscale fruits and vegetables in many cases cost less than what I call the staples. Because I'm always, when I go grocery shopping, I'm always gonna get bananas, oranges, apples, your typicals. But then I'm always on the lookout, and I would never buy this in the lower 48 because it's outrageously expensive. But you get the coolest, call them gourmet fruits and vegetables here in Ketchikan, and they're totally inexpensive. Why is that?
Well, I can't explain that. Our produce pricing, in fact, the pricing throughout our store is actually based off and calculated off of cost.
Right.
In other words, if it costs more, you get charged more.
Right.
Now, not all stores in town are doing that. A lot of stores in town aren't looking at cost. They're looking at, well, what can they get for it? Or how price sensitive is that item? And they actually have computer programs that say, okay, if you raise the price on this, is it going to make a difference in how many you sell? And then you keep raising it until it does make a difference. Well, I know that there are stores in town that do that. Well, we don't. We just strictly, if the cost goes up, then we raise it. If the cost goes down, we lower it. But it's not based on what can we get for it. And that's a psychological pricing. And we don't do that. We're not sophisticated enough, and we don't have the computer.
Well, and it goes back to what you were saying, your work ethic, and the way you like to do business too.
Yeah. I mean, and throughout our store, you'll see that. I mean, my whole thing has been, well, because of the way I'm buying, I can sell you most of the things that you buy, probably an everyday low price that's cheaper than the other stores.
Every day.
Because I've been buying it that way. My ad prices, they'll probably beat me because they're giving stuff away. They're selling below cost.
Loss leaders.
Yeah. But if you buy anything else other than what's in their ad, they make it all back. So, and here,
the psychology of grocery shopping.
Yeah. There are all different kinds of philosophies and.
Well, because it goes to say that, pretend I'm one of those shoppers. And I'm a store where I have a loss leader. Say I'm going to sell 5 pounds of flour for $1.99 or some way low price. It's a loss leader. Well, they're banking on the fact that I'm also going to come in. Oh, I need the sugar. Oh, I need the this. I need the that.
Exactly.
And those are that high price.
Well, here's a big example, right? Everyone in town has really low prices on gallons of milk, right? They're losing money on. They're losing a couple dollars.
Yes, but who
a
gets the
gallon.
milk contract for the school district every year?
Well, we do.
You do.
It's labor intensive. But they're losing money on milk. On the other hand, you turn around and you look at, well, what are they charging for eggs and butter and so they're lowballing gallons of milk, but they're gouging you compared to us on butter, eggs, all the other things in the dairy because they're making it up. So you may think that they're the lowest price store because their gallon of milk is cheaper, but when you get home, you're actually paying more overall.
Well, and again, going back to, the theory is absolutely true, and I've tested it, I guess indirectly, if you will, when we were moving recently, and I called up. I literally didn't have anything to eat in the house, empty fridge, and called over here in complete desperation. It was actually quite late in the day. It was about 2:30, 3 o'clock, and I was just praying that someone would answer the phone and be able to deliver. And nice guy answers the phone, and like I said, the best I got a ton of groceries, and I had given him a budget that was roughly double what he spent, but he got everything on my list for $159, and it was a ton of groceries. I was flabbergasted. And you're talking to a lady that, I mean, I almost consider myself a professional shopper, but I was blown away because I think long and hard about exactly what is going to be going in our fridge and on that grocery list every week. So that was amazing. I mean, that proves it right there because I didn't tell him which brands. I think on one item, I told him, please buy this brand. You choose what you consider to be the best value.
Yeah. So here we are, the smallest store. And that kind of works against us because a natural inclination for people to think, oh, a small store is expensive compared to the big store. But we're an exception to that rule here.
Yeah.
We're actually less expensive than the other stores.
Well, I mean, go figure. We've only been around for going on 100 years, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, so there's got to be a reason for that.
Well, it's that we're still using the old formula for pricing based on cost.
Right.
And not based on opportunity, you know.
So we were talking about shoppers. Can you think of who's shopped here the longest? Who still comes in this store that, do you think, can you guess, that has been your longest customer?
Well,
I know Alan Rockwood and his wife have shopped here forever.
yeah, and I can think of, well, Jim Bray, you know, Union Machine Shop. Jim was a commercial fisherman most of his life. He was actually such a good commercial fisherman. My dad used to just tell me stories about how many fish he caught. He was one of the highliners of the fleet. And he still comes in here. I remember him shopping in our store in the 60s.
Wow.
So that's over 50 years. How many years have you shopped here? I mean, with us. How old are you?
I'm not supposed to tell.
But you know, over 60.
Over 60 years.
Over 60 years.
When your grandma and grandpa had the store.
Yeah, down at the bottom of the hill over there. We've recently added a whole bunch of Filipino stuff because our new grocery manager, Filipino, and so he added a bunch of Filipino things in bigger rice, 50-pound rice.
Wow.
'Cause
That's huge.
Filipinos eat a lot of rice. Well, so, you know, people in Ketchikan eat a lot of rice.
I love rice.
It's a rice-eating town. No, I think historically, because of the fishing industry, the cannery workers were, you know, basically all Oriental. Like, they had Japanese workers, they had Chinese workers, they had Filipino workers, you know, and the local Alaskan natives, you know, it was all rice. So Ketchikan is off the charts when it comes to how much rice that gets sold in Ketchikan per capita.
You know, if you say no, I understand. But I think there's a lot of people that haven't heard the story but would be fascinated by this story because I think it speaks to Ketchikan and to your family about, was it your grandparents or your parents that had to leave Ketchikan and the town ran the store?
Oh, well, the town did not run the store.
Okay, so tell me the story because I've heard like 8 versions of it, and each time it's so touching.
Right.
It's outrage. It's an outrage and it's touching at the same time.
The basic story is Japan attacked the United States when they attacked Pearl Harbor in December 41 or anyway, somewhere back there. And so 2 or 3 months later, they decided they were going to take all the Japanese Americans, any resident of the United States who had Japanese ancestry, and they were going to take them away from the coast. So there were a whole bunch of Japanese in Ketchikan at the time, and they got noticed. They had a few days to get everything they could carry with them, like a couple suitcases, and leave and go on a ship to Seattle, and then my family got shipped out to Idaho.
Really?
Yeah, Minidoka, Idaho. Except they separated the older men, the first generation, and they were sent down to New Mexico, Lordsburg, New Mexico, in a higher security camp. Now, I guess the thought was, well, all these Japanese must be spies because, you know, we're fighting Japan, so they're spies. Well, you know, first generation spoke Japanese. Second generation really didn't speak a lot of Japanese like my dad did, and he was born in the United States. So they were, you know, a lot of them were American citizens. And so they all, you know, they got shipped off. I remember them telling me stories. It was funny because, well, our best friend was guarding us. They had guns and they were guarding us and taking us to the ship, you know, and they were giving them a bad time because they're their friends, and they thought it was funny, you know.
What happened to the store, though? I mean, how long were they gone?
They were gone several years. They were gone probably 4 or 5 years.
Oh, wow.
And what my grandfather apparently did was, you know, they closed the store. All the food that was in the store they gave away to basically their customers and, you know, people who needed food. And in fact, one story was a few years ago, an old guy, he was in his 80s, came in the store. His name was Bud Clark. He says, well, I was a boy when that happened, and my mother was a single mother, and we were having a hard time making ends meet. And he remembers getting all this food from Tatsuda's. He said it really made a difference in their lives when Tatsuda's had to leave to go to camp. So they gave food to the poor people who lived up in Woodland and Dearmont Street, apparently. So that was one of the things they did. And then they rented out or let someone stay in the apartment above the store. So the building was occupied.
Right.
And they did have friends in town who looked after things, you know, if it needed emergency repairs or something, people would take care of it.
So the store wasn't operational?
No, the store was actually closed.
Wow.
Yeah. And fortunately, they owned the real estate. So, you know, they didn't have to completely move out and leave, so the landlord could rent it to somebody.
Right.
And even back then, I'm not sure they allowed non-citizens to own property. So the property was in the names of the children, like my dad and his sisters and brothers were the American citizens, so the property was in their names, but at least they owned it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So when they came back, they had something to come back to.
That's absolutely fascinating.
Yeah.
Now, do you all still have friends in Idaho? Was there any sort of real connection made there?
Not in Idaho. They didn't stay in Idaho that long. If they could find a sponsor somewhere away from the coast, then they could go there.
Okay.
And there was a connection we had with Chicago. I think it was my aunt on my mother's side who was at the University of Chicago. Well, apparently she sponsored the family to go to Chicago.
Interesting.
And actually, my 2 older sisters were born in Chicago.
Really?
Because of this, yes. Because
Holy
of the relocation.
smokes. And then they came back to Ketchikan and reopened the store.
And reopened the store, yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So my dad, during the war, they all got shipped out.
Right.
And then after the war, he came back. My uncle Jim came back, and my grandfather came back. So the 3 of them were working in the store next to Diaz Cafe, that one down there. And so let's say 1948 to 72.
Right.
The store was there. And in about early 50s, when the pulp mill opened, all these logging camps opened up. And so they found a niche in supplying the people who lived in the logging camps. They would box up orders and send it out on a mail boat. The Island Trader was one of them I remember. And so they spent all their time filling orders and boxing them.
and sending them out. And they weren't the only ones in town. Lloyd Rolog at Federal Market did a lot of it. Log Cabin Grocery did a lot of it. And that sustained them for quite a while. And then I'm trying to remember, then the logging kind of went away. So then there was less logging.
So you've actually had to remake, the family's had to remake Tatsudas several times
Yeah.
over the years,
Yeah.
based on what's happening.
Yeah, and I was thinking about that too. I'm going, okay, thank goodness groceries are relatively low cost and high weight per dollar. So you can't mail order them. Otherwise, we'd be competing with the internet,
Right.
which we're not, which is fortunate because and
I never thought about that. That's
and
brilliant.
People have to eat, and the shelf life or the life of food is very short, so they have to keep coming back. So we're in the right business as far as sustaining over time. You know,
Okay, I have a question for you, just because I'm curious. On average, how often does a consumer shop for groceries? Is it weekly? A couple times a week? Every other week?
I don't know what the average is. I think some people do it every day. We have several that do it more than once a day. We know that from
Well, we're standing in the section where they come probably more than once a day.
Well, we know that from our Pump Perks, the people who have our Pump Perks card. Well, we get a message from Pump Perks every time someone uses it more than once in a day.
Oh, wow.
So we get every day. I get these messages. Well, these people use their card. You know, so we know that people shop more than once a day. The
Interesting.
same people, and then some people maybe once a week, maybe twice a week.
So, what happened to your dad's brothers?
He had two brothers that survived childhood, basically. After the war, he was the middle son.
Okay.
His older brother, Charlie Tatsuda, went to law school after the war and became an attorney and he went to, I think, University of Minnesota or something, so he ended up practicing law in Minneapolis.
Oh, wow.
And he's lived there ever since he went to law school after the war. My other uncle, my dad's younger brother, Jimmy, stayed and they worked together in the business with my grandfather.
Okay.
So Jimmy worked here in the store till 1970 or 71, somewhere in that time frame. And he and my dad were partners. And at some point, and apparently he did not really like the grocery business, He actually was probably a better fisherman than my dad in terms of sport fishing. And so he went to work for the ferry system.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
so he worked for the ferry system and retired from the ferry system after 70, 71.
And then they drafted you.
And then my dad forced me into the business. I think I told
Yep.
that story. So after college, I had a degree in accounting and administration, and I was all set to go to Hawaii and be an accountant in Hawaii and learn how to surf.
Surprise!
And my dad, he was struggling. He had just bought the business from my uncle, and he was just working really hard, and he asked if I'd come home and help him. And I said, okay, I'll come back for, a year. I'll help you. And well, the year has, 72. How many years is that? 40.
Wow.
41 years.
40-something years.
Yeah, I came back and I guess I stayed.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. So, it's in my blood. I grew up from 6 years old up in the store. One store or the other.
So you've got this. This is really cool. This last time we visited with you, this did not exist.
Yeah, this is my daughter Catherine's idea. She ran our little store downtown, Junior's Grocery. She was the manager there for...
Really? I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah, she was manager there for a few years right out of high school. And they had a going business in salad bar and sandwiches and soup and things there. And it was real successful for that store. So we basically did that here.
Yeah.
And it added a new dimension. When you come into Tatsuda's at lunchtime,
you know, there's a pretty good
Okay, yeah,
choice.
like, what is steel? $6.99 for, you've got all the cold cuts, cheese, lettuce, all the fixings
Yeah.
for sandwiches.
And you can weigh.
And that's
there's a
only on
variety.
Friday, I might add.
There's enough variety with the salad bar and the hot case there, and then the bakery products over there that, you know, at least you can find something to eat during
Right.
lunch.
Well, no, seriously, because we were here for, I want to say 15 or 20 minutes. And in that small expanse of time, because there's also a case over there that has dips and vegetables and hard-boiled eggs and all sorts of stuff over there. One lady came in specifically looking for a dip and waited for them to make it because you guys had run out. It was that good. And then you had probably, I would say, 30% of the customers had been here previously this week, and they were coming back again. And then you had about another, I don't know, say 25% of the customers who had heard about it and came in, and you could hear them going, ooh, oh, this is really cool. So there was a lot of traffic here.
Right.
And here it is. It was 10 in the morning. It was 10 in the morning,
Yeah.
and people are coming in.
And this has worked out fairly well for us. You know, you probably noticed it's a really low labor-intensive kind of thing. We don't have like a service case where you have
Right.
3 people behind the counter waiting for customers. Here, it's just all production. They put it out, and customers kind of self-service,
Nice.
and it really keeps our labor down.
But you were just telling me about this wall, this wall that you built behind here to kind of put this in has
Yeah.
actually helped the other side of the wall.
Yeah, it created, well, first of all, we took a check stand out of here.
Right, right.
It used to be a check stand over here. And we can get by with 3. You know, we have fast scanners and, you know, all that kind of stuff. We put the wall in for this, but it turns out we get this huge display area on the other side
For produce.
And produce has taken a pretty good jump because of that. Because not only do we have the display space there, now my produce guy is going out every week when he's ordering and asking the wholesaler, what do you got that's really high quality and in season and at a good price? He's doing that every week. So we're going out and looking for quality and price and getting a handful of items every week just to push through here at a good price and high quality. And he's got a display, a place to do it.
Yeah, it looks really good. It looks really good because you naturally go in and then the flow back, at least I do. I flow back around through produce and bam, this wall just kind of hits you in the face like, wow.
Right. Also, we do have the refrigerated produce case with all the leaf lettuce and refrigerated greens and broccoli.
Where the bear went shopping.
Yeah, it's where the bear, that's the first place he headed to, actually, and he wouldn't leave. They had to grab him and haul him out the door. But we've really improved that section, too. The freshness and quality is really turning well, and we tend it constantly. So we're real happy, and the quality of produce has been much improved in the last, I don't know, year or so, and our sales are really up on produce,
You also
too.
recently made a change to your ethnic food section, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because I heard about that.
You know, it's like a 2-for-1. I hired Joe Pauly as produce manager, right? So he transforms our produce department, and then he goes out and gets his brother Jovi to actually do the work. And the next thing I know, he's ordering all this Filipino food, and we've added a whole dimension to our Oriental section with all these Filipino things, and it's doing really well, and it's drawing a lot more customers too.
Yeah,
So-
good prices too.
Yeah, so our Oriental section, or Asian section, I guess is the new word, is really enhanced and larger. We added a few feet to it too.
So I have one last question for you. You are not in the grocery. If you're not working in the grocery, what are you doing? What's your favorite thing in the whole wide world to do?
Well, right now I'm fishing. I'm sport fishing for king salmon.
How many have you caught this year?
I haven't done well. We've gotten 10 kings in the boat, and I would have had 12, but a seal stole one of them. I was playing a seal for a while. I thought I was going to win the derby. No, I'm not kidding. I'm playing the fish, and all of a sudden it just takes off like a rocket and it won't stop. And I'm going, what time is it? We got 20 minutes to get this thing in and get over to enter it, you know? And then the seal pops up and I'm going, oh. So the seal won. I managed to tear the hooks out, you know, so I got the hooks loose, but the seal won. He got the fish. And then a couple nights ago we were out there and I had Catherine on the boat with me, and she hooked a real big one, and it took off like a freight train. And out there, hole in the wall, there's all those commercial boats. And this fish ran right at a commercial trawler, and the guy was trying to avoid it. He turned around actually, but the fish chased the trawler down and ran in front of his lines.
Oh no!
And you know, got caught up in the commercial gear and broke off. So I would have had 12 this year.
And then what are you going to fish for next?
I don't. I like kings. We did go halibut fishing. Joe Pauly, this is 3 for 1. Joe Pauly, the produce guy, took me halibut fishing.
Oh, nice.
So we limited out on halibut.
Sweet.
And then he took me somewhere, and we dropped at Cone Island, got a double header of coho. So now
Very
he's
cool.
no longer Joe Pauly, he's Captain Joe.
Oh, nice. I
Yeah,
like it.
Captain Joe.
Captain Joe. Well, you know what? Thank you so much for having us. This has been really, really cool. I really can't think of very many other families in Ketchikan with the level of history that the Tatsuda family has.
Yeah,
I mean, it's very few and far between that you're going to come across a family with such depth in the community.
we just keep plugging away. You know, grocery business is, I hate to say it, but it's a grunt business. You know, you get in there and you just work hard physically. And Catherine, you know, is a whole different thing. She's working mentally, which has made a big difference here.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much.
All right, well, thank you. I've enjoyed this.